Diana pressed the phone to her ear. Her tone shifted instantly, calm but commanding. "Yes, I'm at the Beverly Hills location. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. I need the full board on the call now." She paused for a moment, listening. "Yes, this is a disciplinary matter. It involves a violation of company values, potential brand damage, and employee conduct, unbecoming of Luminous Designs." As she spoke, the store held its breath. Every employee, every customer, even Patricia, stood frozen, watching something they couldn't believe was happening in real time. The woman they had underestimated was not only in charge, she was taking charge. Patricia's knees buckled slightly. Her world had shifted. She looked down, then back at Diana, hoping for mercy. But Diana didn't even look at her right away. She looked around the store, at the beautiful displays, the diamonds sparkling under soft lights, the customers with phones in hand, the people whose trust she had worked decades to earn. This wasn't just a store. This was her legacy. And it had to be protected. Kevin stepped closer, still shaken but steady. "Miss Mitchell," he said softly, "I'm so sorry. If I had known..." Diana shook her head gently. "It's not about knowing who I am," she said. "It's about knowing what's right." Ashley stood beside Kevin now, her voice more steady than before. "I didn't know either. I just saw someone being treated unfairly." Diana finally smiled, small but genuine. "That's all it takes," she said. "Seeing someone, treating them with basic dignity, that's what this company was built on." Marcus, standing tall near the entrance, cleared his throat quietly. "Ma'am, I'm proud of how you handled this, and I'm glad I didn't follow that order." "You did the right thing," Diana said, looking at him with respect. "That's what matters." Then she turned to Patricia, who looked like she was standing in the wreckage of her own pride. Her voice was low now, not angry, but final. "Patricia, you judged me the second I walked in. You decided I didn't belong here. But the truth is, this place wouldn't exist without me. And people like you are the reason I started this company in the first place." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Diana continued, "You see, I've walked into a lot of rooms in my life where people assumed I didn't belong. They saw my skin, my car, my clothes, and decided who I was before I even spoke. I built Luminous Designs to be the opposite of that. A place where people are treated with care, whether they're spending $500 or $500,000. The call on her phone beeped, confirmation that the board was now listening. Diana didn't flinch. She turned slightly away from Patricia and spoke with quiet authority. "Effective immediately, Patricia Whitman is terminated from her position as manager of the Beverly Hills location due to conduct inconsistent with our values. Kevin Torres will assume the role of acting manager until a full transition plan is in place. Ashley Chen is promoted to assistant manager. Marcus Johnson will receive a commendation and compensation adjustment for his integrity and professionalism." A year beat past. Then softly, clearly, she added, "Let this moment be a reminder that respect is not optional here. It is the foundation of everything we do." She ended the call, slipped her phone back into her purse, and looked around the room. The store had gone completely quiet, but this time it wasn't tense, it was respectful. Customers nodded quietly. A few even clapped softly at first, then with growing strength. Not because they had seen someone fired, but because they had witnessed someone stand up for everything that mattered. Patricia began gathering her things from behind the counter. Her hands shook. Her face was pale. She said nothing as she placed a few personal items into a small box. Just before she left, she turned back to Diana. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know, and I was wrong." Diana didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just said, "I hope you carry this lesson with you." And with that, Patricia walked out of the store. The customers went back to browsing, but the atmosphere had changed. It felt warmer, realer. The same diamonds sparkled, But now the store had something money couldn't buy: integrity. Kevin approached Diana again, still amazed. What should we do next? Diana looked at him, then at Ashley, then at Marcus. We run the store, she said. We treat every person who walks in here like they matter. Because they do. She walked over to the Aurora collection, the very one Patricia had tried to keep her from seeing, and adjusted the necklace slightly. The prongs were off, just a little. She fixed them with the eye of someone who cared about every detail. Then, she stepped back, nodded, and looked around one last time. Her store, her team, her values, all still standing. You know, she said, more to herself than anyone else, you don't always have to shout to be heard. Sometimes standing your ground is loud enough. And just like that, Diana turned, walked out the front door, and disappeared into the Beverly Hills sunlight. Not in a limousine, not with a media team. Just a woman getting into her old Honda Civic with her head high and her bracelet shining in the light. Because success isn't always about what you wear, what you drive, or how loud you are. Sometimes, success looks like grace under pressure, and treating others with respect. That's what makes a legacy worth leaving behind. If you were moved by this story, make sure to subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember that every person has worth, no matter how they walk in the door. The store fell quiet. Not silent like peace, but silent like a moment right before thunder breaks the sky open. Diana's phone was in her hand, her fingers moving slowly, with purpose. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't yelling. She didn't have to. The weight of her calm spoke louder than any raised voice. Patricia stood there, unsure whether to double down or back away. Her confidence, built on years of judging people by their appearance, was starting to crack. But her pride, her need to be right in front of her staff and her elite customers, kept her from walking it back. "You're calling your board?" Patricia asked, almost laughing again, but this time more nervous than smug. Diana didn't answer. She raised the phone to her ear and said 6 words that changed the air in the room. "Yes, it's Diana Mitchell, emergency meeting." Suddenly, a ripple went through the store. Ashley, the youngest of the sales team, felt her heart drop. She knew that name. She had seen it on every memo, every email signature, every piece of internal communication since her first day. Kevin, the assistant manager, looked from Diana to Patricia and back again. He started to realize the awful truth. They hadn't just disrespected a customer. They had disrespected the very woman who built everything around them. And not by mistake. On purpose. Because she didn't look the part. Patricia, still clinging to the idea that she was in charge, tried to regain control. "You don't get to walk in here and disrupt the store like this," she snapped. "You don't even belong here." That was it. The words that pushed everything too far. Diana lowered the phone for a moment. She looked Patricia straight in the eye and asked calmly, "What makes you think I don't belong here?" The manager blinked. Her face said it all. It wasn't about policy. It wasn't about security. It was about judgment. It was about assuming that success only looked one way. Patricia looked at Diana's car, her clothes, her skin, and she had made a decision. Diana looked over at Marcus, the security guard. He was still standing in place, watching, unsure what to do. "Ma'am," he said gently, "are you okay?" His voice wasn't firm. It was respectful, curious. He wasn't ready to follow Patricia's order to remove someone who hadn't done anything wrong. His instincts told him this wasn't just a customer issue. This was something much bigger. "I'm fine, Marcus," Diana said, her voice still steady. "But thank you for asking." And just like that, with one small moment of kindness, Marcus had set himself apart from the rest. Back behind the counter, Ashley had already pulled up the company website on her phone. There it was, Diana's picture, smiling in a business suit. The title under her name, Founder and CEO of Luminous Designs. Ashley turned the screen to Kevin without saying a word. Kevin's face went pale. He looked back toward Patricia with a mixture of dread and disbelief. They had all been standing in the presence of their CEO the entire time, and they had let it happen. Outside the store, everything was still normal. Tourists were taking photos. Shoppers were browsing. A Rolls-Royce pulled up to valet. But inside the flagship Beverly Hills store of a $180 million company, the clock was ticking toward a moment none of them would ever forget. Patricia was now watching everyone watch her. Her authority was slipping. Her voice got louder, more defensive. You all think this is real? You think she's the CEO? Then where's her driver, her Chanel bag? Why doesn't she look the part? And there it was again, that same old poison. The belief that power needs to be flashy to be real. That respect is earned by appearance, not by action. Patricia had wrapped herself so tightly in that mindset that even as her reality crumbled, around her she clung to it like a life vest. Diana didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult anyone. Instead, she asked Kevin one question. How do you train your team here? Kevin looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. We follow the onboarding manual, he said quietly. We cover customer care, product knowledge, and brand presentation. Diana nodded. And what about respect? She asked. Kevin hesitated. We're supposed to treat everyone equally. But is that what happens here? Diana asked, this time louder, so the entire store could hear. Does every customer get treated the same? Silence. Ashley stepped forward. She spoke not because it was safe, but because it was right. No, she said. They don't. I've seen it. Patricia spun toward her. Excuse me? Ashley didn't back down. You treat people differently based on how they dress, how they look, even how they talk. And it's not what this company stands for. Diana's eyes softened. Ashley had just confirmed what she already knew. That her values, what she built luminous designs on, had been lost in at least one place that mattered most. Kevin tried to step in. Patricia, maybe we should be quiet, Patricia shouted. She was unraveling now. Her eyes were wide, her hands shaky. You're all just falling for some act. She's trying to play you. And still, Diana remained calm. I designed this store, she said, looking around. I picked the lighting, the velvet tones, the music, that bracelet you're wearing. It was one of my first creations. I spent years building this company, not so I could wear labels, but so I could create a space where everyone felt valued. The store was full of eyes now. Customers had stopped browsing. Phones were recording. The Blackstones, wealthy regulars, stood in stunned silence. They had seen Diana when she first walked in, standing alone by the glass case. They hadn't realized who she was either, but now their expressions were filled with guilt. They knew they had silently benefited from someone else being pushed aside. Patricia, Diana said, finally turning back to her. This isn't about whether I look like I belong. This is about the fact that I built this place, and right now I'm watching you tear it apart from the inside. Patricia tried one last desperate move. I didn't know who you were, she whispered. I didn't mean any harm, but Diana looked her in the eye and said something Patricia would never forget. You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. And that's when the phone in Diana's hand buzzed. The board was on the line. She took a breath and answered. What she said next would change everything for Patricia, for the employees, for the customers, and for the company. But you'll hear that in the next part. Stay with us, because what happens when the truth comes out is just the beginning. It was supposed to be just another quiet morning in Beverly Hills. The streets were clean, the storefronts glittered with wealth, and the world outside that jewelry store moved at its usual pace, calm, expensive, and picture-perfect. But inside one of the most luxurious stores on Rodeo Drive, something was about to happen that would shake the entire brand to its core. It all started with a woman, 42-year-old Diana Mitchell. She didn't walk in wearing a designer dress or step out of a luxury vehicle. No, she drove up in an old dusty 2003 Honda Civic. Her clothes were neat, her blazer pressed, and a simple silver bracelet dangled on her wrist. But what truly stood out was her presence. quiet, powerful, and impossible to ignore, unless you were someone who only judged by appearances. The moment Diana stepped through the door of Luminous Designs, no one in the store knew who she was. Not the customers admiring the diamond rings, not the young sales associates behind the counter, and definitely not the store manager, Patricia Whitman. And that was the biggest mistake of all. Patricia had built an image of herself as the face of luxury. Her high heels clicked with authority, her voice was always polished, and she believed she had a natural talent for spotting the right kind of customer. To her, appearance was everything. So when Diana entered, Patricia didn't see a successful woman or a potential client. She saw someone who didn't fit the mold, someone she believed didn't belong. That moment, that single second of silent judgment, set the wheels in motion. Diana hadn't come in to make a scene. In fact, she wasn't even planning on being noticed. She had built her empire through quiet resilience and unshakable discipline. She believed in leading from behind the scenes, checking on her stores without warning, making sure her values were lived, not just written in mission statements. That's why she was there. Not to shop, but to observe. But before she could even say a word, she felt it. That shift in energy, that cold, dismissive glance, that tone that people of color, women, and anyone who's ever been underestimated know all too well. Patricia approached her with a smile, yes, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. The kind of smile that says, "What are you doing here?" Diana asked to see the Aurora collection, the crown jewel of the store, and the pride of Luminous Designs. But instead of bringing her closer, Patricia hesitated. She warned her about the prices. She asked her why she wanted to see it. She tried to push her toward the cheaper items in the back, hoping Diana would get the message and leave quietly. But Diana didn't leave. She stayed, calm, observant, silent, but not weak. What Patricia didn't realize was that the woman she was treating like a nobody had founded the very company she worked for. Diana Mitchell wasn't just a customer. She was the CEO, the designer, the visionary behind every detail in that store. Every diamond sparkle, every velvet-lined counter, every polished mirror had been approved by her. She had built Luminous Designs from a small workshop to a multi-million-dollar empire. And yet, here she was, being told she wasn't worthy of looking at a necklace she had designed herself. Patricia continued her show for the other customers, smiling, offering them champagne, giving them the full royal treatment. And Diana? She waited, watching, taking it all in. But things didn't stop there. What began as cold treatment turned into something worse. Patricia began to question her motives, suggested she might be trying to steal, demanded proof that she could even afford the jewelry. And when Diana didn't back down, Patricia threatened to call the police. Still, Diana remained calm. But now, her silence wasn't about observation. It was the stillness before a storm. The staff watched from the sidelines. Ashley, the young sales associate, looked uneasy. Kevin, the assistant manager, sensed something was wrong. And Marcus, the security guard, stood frozen between his orders and his instincts. Each one of them knew something wasn't right, but no one dared to speak yet. Outside, people kept walking past the storefront, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside. Inside, cameras blinked from the ceiling, quietly recording every word, every glance, every mistake. And then, with one simple sentence, Diana shifted everything. "I'd like to speak to your manager." Patricia laughed, loudly. "I am the manager," she said proudly. Diana took a slow breath, her hands no longer trembling. She reached into her purse, not for a wallet, not for proof of funds, but for something far more powerful. Her phone. And that's when the story you're about to hear truly begins. Because what followed next wasn't just a confrontation. It wasn't just about one woman being disrespected, or one manager crossing the line. It was a moment of reckoning, a moment where values, power, identity, and leadership collided in the most unexpected way. It was a story about what happens When someone dares to judge a woman by the way she looks, and then finds out she owns everything they see. Before we continue, take a moment. Think about how you would feel in that situation. Think about how many people get treated differently simply because someone else assumes they don't belong. Now imagine what happens when the one being underestimated decides to speak up. Stay with us, because what's about to unfold in that Beverly Hills jewelry store will change everything.